you for joining us this evening. My name is Melissa Lampy, and I am the newly elected president of the Watertown Historical Society, having taken over from Mr. Bill Yankee. That occurred in, gosh, July, I think now. Time has flown. Anyway, tonight's presentation is a play on a picture says 1,000 words. And this is part 2 of a presentation that we did last year that was very well received, where Bill is going to show us early glass negative pictures from the Jones-Kreitzman collection and talk about the little things in depth that you may not notice upon first glance. But before we get to the presentation, just a couple of events coming up that I wanted you all to know about. If you don't receive our newsletter, our final public presentation will be on Monday, November 18th, and we have an antiques dealer coming to talk about antique and vintage Christmas decorations. And he has a fantastic collection. He'll be bringing some of his own to do a show and tell with us. On Saturday and Sunday, November 30th and December 1st, will be the Watertown Players Christmas play in the Octagon House. It will be A Wizard of Oz Christmas, and auditions are this Saturday, the 28th, starting at
9:30 a.m. at the Public Library.
Yes. And then new this year, Bill and Randy Raisler will be doing a special Christmas reading at the Octagon House on December 27th and 28th at 7 p.m. and then Sunday, December 29th at 2 p.m., where they will be sharing excerpts from old newspapers, articles from the time, stories about Christmas in Watertown, late 1800s, early 1900s. So that should be a really special event right between Christmas and New Year's. So without further ado, we'll turn it over to Bill.
Good evening. Good evening. Remember me? I was struck by something that I saw in the paper about a week or so ago, under the glimpses of the past column. It made mention of the fact that 10 years ago, the Historical Society had a reception for Jerry Kreitzman and his brother Bill, and when they donated their glass plate negative collection to the Historical Society. It's hard to believe it's been 10 years since I first laid eyes on this pile of glass, some of which were in rather terrible condition, but most of it were in beautiful condition. And that first piece of glass I held up, and I was able to hold it up to the light and look at it and go, well, that's the Harding Brewery workers. And there's Charles Mantz, and that's got to be Bill Harding. And picked up another slide, and there it was. I was able to identify that. These pictures, ladies and gentlemen, are without question some of the finest, the biggest find that the Historical Society has had in many, many years. And all the prints you see here are available as prints, if you're interested in any of those, for $10 per. And just speak to Melissa or to Ken Riedel. He's kind of our go-to man on that sort of thing. And if you're interested, these and others you can have copies of for yourself. So tonight we are going to do part 2 of what may be, if you're so inclined, an ongoing series of explorations into these old photographs. Now, contrary to what the Daily Times said, I'm not going to teach you anything about photography. I'm not going to teach you anything about that, but what I am going to do is kind of hopefully enlighten you as to taking an old photograph and being able to look at it a little bit closer, because every picture tells a story. And the pictures we've got tonight certainly tell interesting stories. Starting with this picture. This, first of all, does anybody know where we are looking? I know it's Watertown, I know, that's an obvious thing. But First and Main. What's the giveaway?
The staircase.
I read it in the book once.
You read it in the book once. Well, that's a good review. Okay. Well, Kex would probably be the best giveaway. Didn't see that there, did you?
No.
This picture, we have, fortunately, a great deal of information on. It was taken on May 14th, 1898, and it shows men hovered around a pole there looking at the latest dispatches about the Spanish-American War. Now, this picture is also identified as far as the people that are concerned. Standing right in front of what was known as the Charles Gam Drugstore. You notice the sign there. The upper floor is where the Daily Times was. And peeking out of the windows there, you will see J.W., let's see, You'll see Eugene Killian, E.J. Schoolcraft, and J.W. Kruger. They were the founders of the Daily Times in 1895. Standing here are, from left to right, Eugene Killian, E.J. Schoolcraft, Paul Scheckert, Herman Dutch Yankee, no relation. They had a creamery in town. Money, so they obviously were not relation to me. Emil Nitz Newman on the horse. Conrad Hendrick, who was employed by the city. J. Reinhardt, Dr. William Spaulding, George Reinhardt, a distant relative of mine, Charles Roth, who was a mason. Jacob Eifler, another distant relative who was a policeman. And then the rest of the people are unfortunately unknown.
That's a pose picture, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Well, as posed as you're ever going to get, I would say. And let's face it, the horse is not moving, so I would say it probably was a posed one. Now, we will take a look at a modern day view of the same area. Kind of loses something in the translation, does it not? But you'll notice something. You see here where you have the side of the building, kecks and everything, where this building is? You'll notice there is a noticeable sort of a stain here showing where the building's height was originally next to Keck's furniture, the main level. You also notice that we've lost the beautiful gabled L here on that. This was done, this modern look was done probably in the 1920s. Now, we're going to zero in on a couple of specialty items here. First of all, here are the men. You see how fine-grained the negative is by being able to blow it up and see the expressions on the faces. Aren't they cheery? Even the horse looks like he's posing for something, you know. And notice something else. In the distance, you see this right here. You know what that is? That's a beer advertisement for the Hardigan Mance Company. You'll notice the department store sign there, the Hertel and Hoffman sign there. They were a clothing store. Albert Quintmeyer, you can just make it out there. He was a jeweler and clothing store. Pardon me, he had a clothing store. The watch, though, is from the one of the jewelers up that way. Ice cold soda water off to the side, because of course it was a drugstore. That drugstore, by the way, exploded in 1910. They were mishandling chemicals and it blew out the front windows. People came from miles around to pick up shards of glass as souvenirs. Charles Gam was a trickster. The ladies upstairs who worked for the telephone company, because that was up there as well at one time, as well as City Hall. The ladies up there, he played a trick on them one Valentine's Day. Or I should say St. Patrick's Day, it's more appropriate, because he mixed up a batch of harmless chemical and doctored up a box of chocolates and gave them the box of chocolates to eat. And when they had to answer the call of nature, well, it was green. Caused quite a stir, let me tell you. Next, Mr. Raceman.
Who was the photographer of that picture?
Well, unfortunately, we don't know who the photographers were. One or two pictures we can probably tell that they might have been negatives from John B. May, although by this time he was long gone. In fact, he had passed away by now. So I'm not sure who took these pictures. They belong, though, to William Jones, who was a Watertown collector before there were such things as Watertown collectors. Good friend of the Thomases, who were grandchildren and daughters of the builders of the Octagon House. And a friend of the Historical Society's early days.
Bill, did you ever flesh out the stories of one of those guys standing here?
Well, yes, as I say up there in the top windows, those are the founders of the Daily Times. Who the gentleman is there, that gentleman standing down bottom is John Callahan. You'll notice the bicycles in the window, the Ma Bell sign there for a telephone. You can go and use a public telephone there. The ornate staircase that went up, and the sliding door there that kind of took you down into a basement area, because you've got to remember at this time they were making full use of the buildings from bottom to top. So if you could go into the basement and have a business, you did. That's why today, when they are finding in basements doorways and windows to face Main Street that they can't account for, it's because at one time there were open staircases to let you walk downstairs And there was a door down there that you could get into the basement area. And when the street was graded and changed over, they simply paved over the top and closed in the doors over there. Next.
No interior pictures of the Daily Times exist, huh, of that time?
Not that I'm aware of. But things are discovered all the time. Now this is the north side of the street in that same picture. Now take a look here. Here you see a sign for a boot for a shoe store. You see a pole there advertising for an oyster bar. There was a music store there. Right out in front, what do you suppose those wooden crates are containing?
Desks and comfort.
Well, very definitely all musical instruments. I would say organs or pianos of some kind. And that beautiful look of the Kex furniture. It's kind of a shame that that went. And down the corner there, you'll notice also that a lot of those buildings made use of the second floor, and there are balconies that they no longer have, of course. And there, of course, is what is today Frank's Cozy Corner, whatever it's called nowadays. That was known as the Harvey Building, or the Cole Building, actually. It belonged to Oscar Cole, a son of John W. Cole. All right, next. Now, here we have two rugged-looking individuals, obviously law keepers. They are standing in front of the Schott Brothers Saloon at 212 West Main Street, around about 1900. I only include this because today, if you'll go to the next picture, they're standing in front of what is today Triana's Trophy. It's changed quite a bit here, would you not agree? Let's see, can we go back to that first one again?
Sure.
Now, let me point out a couple of things. First of all, you'll notice the William Hardig wooden sign hanging from the top there. This is what was, in those days, it was Schott Brothers, Otto and Reine Schott. They were amateur boxers, and they both ran saloons and restaurants. Otto Schott later on ran a very successful restaurant in town up through the early 1940s. And you did not want to cross them and make them upset because, after all, being amateur boxers, they couldn't know how to handle people. Beyond them here, first of all, you'll notice how high the entrance is to everything. You had to go up several flights, a couple of steps to get into it. And the sidewalk is basically a wooden planking. You didn't get cement sidewalks in town until well after 1900. But you'll notice off to the side there, there's no library, which wasn't built until 1907. And there's no Tremont Hotel, which was there from the 1850s onward until it burned down in a spectacular fire in the 1890s. There was nothing but an empty, ruined lot there. Now, what the building was beyond, I'm not sure, because it was a very pronounced skylight to it, which no longer exists, unfortunately. But you can see the posters there, and the hitching post there, too. So it's kind of an interesting little picture.
You know, the last meeting had Jim Drager talking about taverns.
Yes?
What was Hardig's beer like? Can you compare what it was? Its
Well,
flavor?
unfortunately, I was never able to drink any because they went out of existence in 1946, and I was born in 1961. But my grandmother said it was very gassy.
Very what?
Very gassy. And by 1946, the management of the brewery had left the quality slip so far that even soldiers down south would not drink it. In fact, they labeled a whole train carload poison and sent it back up here, and that kind of killed off the brewing industry. Next, please. Okay. All right, now this picture was taken about 1905 or thereabouts, and is taken from the roof of a prominent building in Watertown. Anybody can hazard a guess as to what roof that we are standing on looking at this view?
St. Bernard's?
Nope.
Octagonals?
You're looking north.
Oh, okay, no, some church.
No, not a church.
South of Main Street.
The old hospital?
No.
Between 4th and 5th Street.
There you go. Only in those days it was Turner Opera House, because you're standing on the roof of the original Turner Hall. Now, my esteemed colleague, Mr. Raisler, is able to identify a little bit more of these buildings than I usually am, so I will ask you if you will speak a few words.
Okay.
This is one of two views of roughly the same panoramic area, but this is a very impressive picture.
Got a couple of close-ups of that from that larger photograph. This street is South 4th Street. This corner is what we've known for many, many years as Justman Liquor. And this little building was replaced. The building that's on that corner now has been for sale for many years. It was Dr. Caron's office. Dr. Smebach was in it later on.
Dr. Nichols originally.
Dr. Nichols, yeah.
This area here is South 3rd Street. This rooftop is Brado Jewelry, or what many of us knew as Salic Jewelry. This is the backside of what had been for many years Knight's Old Realty. To give you an idea, you're in that first block on South 3rd. Many, many years this was Klein's, and now it's a bar.
H2O.
H2O, it had been Froggy's, many people remember that. The old Coast to Coast store facing Main Street. This is a little parking lot between 3rd and 4th. This corner where this little house is, was or still is the telephone company, the red brick building.
Built in 1927.
This was the Schmutzler Furniture Store, and is today Tribeca, the coffee shop. This house, the angle is a little skewed from the rooftop. This house and the corner lot next to it are today the site of a parking lot on South 4th Street, just across from the telephone company building. And in this vacant lot, it's a kind of a bungalow style home, prairie style from around 1910, 1920. It's been recently refurbished, and it's next to the parking lot. And then this is the rooftops of houses that are right along the side of Turner Hall.
And further in the back, you will notice there's the Heartache Brewery.
Heartache Brewery, which is Breslow's Grocery.
And over there, the church there, I believe that is the Moravian Church.
No, it's the bell tower for St. Henry's School.
Oh.
This is the flower box. It's photography at that era. As we get to the outside edge of the photos, it's blurry and large, as well as the center of the photograph. This is David's paint store. And you know, it's not actually that far in actuality, but this corner was for many years the Kellerman family had an insurance agency there. It's all part of the M&I Bank, or Bank Montreal.
And if you grew up in Watertown, you knew it as the Hofbrau Bar at one point too.
So, other than visually, your sense of smell, at one time Watertown must have smelled like Milwaukee beer in the era.
I think it depended on where you were. We also had 5 bakeries at one time, which would have smelled pretty good in the early morning
And
hours.
we had several tanneries too, and let me tell you, there's a smell as well.
Here we are focusing on the South 3rd Street area. This corner is today Thrivent Insurance.
And right here is the coal block,
Which
which is Lions Brew Pub.
and the backside of what is now an empty building, but most of us knew it as Kresge's, and later on as Klein's.
Shemps.
This is the clock tower down at the municipal building or fire department.
Our old city hall.
This is the remnants of the
The
Fearman.
Fearman Brewery was being torn down to make way for a park. So actually now, knowing that, this might date it a little bit closer to the teens possibly.
This site, for any of you that are newer to the community, is where the municipal building is today and the fire department.
Was Memorial Park for a while too.
No, is that statue in Veterans Park the same one that was in Memorial Park?
No.
There was never well, apart from Phyllis the Bird Woman, there was never a statue in Memorial Park.
Oh, because I was at the Active Control today and they had a plate that had that statue on it.
Now, are you talking about the Indian statue?
No, the big obelisk with the Civil War soldiers.
That's always been at Memorial Park on 3rd and 4th, between 3rd and
Never
4th.
on Jones Street, huh?
No. All right, now we are looking at a picture. First of all, do you know what street this is?
Dirt Street.
Katie.
No.
Katie.
Who said Katy?
I did.
Yes, Katy Street.
That's the big carriage house in the back.
Yeah.
This is the William Harding's carriage house. This was taken in September of 1899 during the Harvest Carnival. There was so many floats in those days and flower-covered wagons that they would drag people back and forth for that event. It was quite special. There was a wooden arch with colored lights, electric lights, mind you, built on Main Street Bridge that you crossed through as sort of a herald to the new century, as it were. It stood up there for almost a year until the city said, yeah, get rid of it. And so it was taken down. It's a lovely picture. Of course, you'll notice that there is no paving here. But you'll also notice, well, you'll get a better idea of what has changed. And it's rather kind of a dramatic change by the next picture. Now look, there's been quite a change here. First of all, that tree has grown up quite a bit. This has not changed dramatically. I mean, the window treatment is still the same, but there is no longer a noticeable alleyway. I mean, it's not as clearly marked here. There's not a tree there anymore to speak of. And the shed has changed somewhat too. But what's also changed is, and if we can go back to that first picture once more, or would the next picture show that a little bit better, Mr. Raisler? Well, all right, here you can see the garage, and you'll also notice there's a gentleman standing in the garage, looking rather owly at the photographer, probably. Here you get a good view of why a horse should never be taken. I haven't had a picture taken because it doesn't keep still. But you'll notice as you look at this picture, as you go past the lovely ladies, that the house there has changed somewhat. I think we have another view of that.
We do. Whatever behaves here.
Okay, now take a look at this house. This belonged to the Rush family. They were shoemakers and shoe sellers for years and years and years. You will notice, first of all, nosy kid there. You'll notice a picket fence and a wraparound porch that no longer exists. You'll also notice that the treatment back here has changed because they've added some sort of an addition to the back end of it. I presume to probably make this into somewhat of an apartment building. And if you look very closely, right through here, you can just make out, and you've got to almost take a magnifier to see it, you can make out a sign that says Badger State Bottling Company. Badger State Bottling Company stood on North Water Street. Today it is a very attractive parking lot, but it was the leading soda pop maker in Watertown from 1868 up through the 1920s. Woman obviously really desperate to get a picture taken, if you'll notice that.
Bill?
Yes.
So wait, that is the Second Empire style house that is on the corner of North Water and Katy Street.
Yes. And you'll notice also that it doesn't really have a mansard roof the way it looks.
That's one of the mysteries we were talking about getting ready for this presentation. This roof line is not at all the same today. When you go by, it sweeps up in the typical mansard fashion so that it always looks like it's coming up as a fan.
Because that attic gable almost
Yes.
looks like something you'd see on a 1920s house. That's why I was confused, and I know the date of the picture. It's just
Yeah.
it's very deceiving.
And even this back end where the garages are today on that house, tonight before the meeting, I drove down that alley like I lived there. Figured, what's the worst that could happen? And I could not see anything on the back end that matches this photo. So at some point around the turn of the century, just after this, they did quite a bit of remodeling to that house. The roof was bumped up, or the attic was expanded for space.
This is why
it has full-size windows now.
Yeah.
And it's a 3-car garage bay on the back in brick to match the house. So
This is
something
why,
was changed.
when I was identifying this picture, I knew that that had to be Katy Street, and that was the Harding carriage house or garage. But I was not 100% sure because of this house being so different in looks from what it is today.
Can they Photoshop glass negatives?
No.
No.
Well, I wouldn't say in the 1890s they had quite that technology, but anything's possible, I suppose.
Bill?
Yes.
Just because this is my neighborhood, I'm pretty
Yes,
familiar
yes.
with it. Yeah, the current style of that house that we see today is very much an 1870s style, that mansard roof. So it seems to me odd that something would be remodeled into that following 1899, but immediately to the north of that house, there are two houses that exist that underneath the vinyl siding, it would have looked exactly like the house with the peak and that little round window. So you're sure that's not the house immediately to the north that fronts Water Street?
Ah, that's
It's too
a
close.
good, that's too, well, that or the angle of the old photography skews our distance perception.
Go back. Can you go back to the very original print? See, this is the inherent problem sometimes with because you see, when you're looking at that picture, things look a little bit closer. The perspective is just a little bit askew occasionally. So, I mean, it could be what we're seeing here.
I think the house with the gable and the two windows is the next house to the north, the one on the corner.
Okay.
Then the other house, then, boy, but where's the Rush home then?
Must be off the
That's why I'm
picture to the
thinking
right.
It could be off the picture.
Well, if you see our names in the paper from the neighborhood watch group reporting us, you'll know,
No,
you'll
not
know
me.
we've been there.
It'll be
studying.
Mr. Ace. All right, we'll move on. One of those imponderables, which is why we let future historians worry about that stuff. All right,
There's that beer sign again.
there's that beer sign. I wish some of those existed yet. I would love to have one. Anybody have a gander, can hazard a guess as to what street we are on?
Paving the street,
Yeah, I know they're paving it, but what street are we on?
the unpaved street.
They must have really had a lot of mud on their shoes all the time back then.
Say what?
Must have a lot of mud on their shoes all the time.
Oh, yes.
Mud on their shoes, did you say?
Yeah, back then.
Yeah, I thought it sounded like something else you had on their shoes. They probably had that as well, let me tell you. This is North 3rd Street, just beyond Maine, just north of Maine. This is about, maybe around 1903 or thereabouts when they were bricking up North 3rd Street, laying bricks on the street. We'll show a modern picture of it. And that is today's shot. I always tell people in Watertown that just about everything in Watertown used to be a saloon. And if it isn't a saloon yet, it's either a bank or a parking lot. Here, of course, we have a law office, which is kind of like a saloon. You know. Anyway, let us zero in on that picture there.
Which one, the old one?
The old one. I think we have. Do we have a? Yeah. Now there you see a nice view of the Harding sign. You will also notice a rather pensive-looking woman looking out of the screen. Very unhappy about being pictured, I'm sure. You know, not got the hair right or whatever.
Why a six-pointed star for Hardy?
Why is what?
Six-pointed star?
I think it was basically just an advertising gimmick. I don't think it had any special significance that I'm aware of. Here you'll notice the view showing little palm trees in there and, of course, bottles of liquor in the window. This bar was the Henry Fent Saloon at 109 North 3rd Street, today the home of Whiskey Law Offices, the solemn old judge. So, now, and this is where we want to end up. Ladies and gentlemen, when I saw this picture in negative form for the first time, I was impressed. When I saw a print of it, I was bowled over. This picture is spectacular. It shows the interior, and it's very rare to see an interior picture in the 1890s. The interior of the Max Wagaman and John Strauss dry goods store, located at 114 East Main Street, today the home of the Community Action Coalition, the CAC building, right next to Frank's Cozy Corner. This was taken probably, very likely, about the same time as the Harvest Carnival in 1899. But look at this picture. It is just amazing what you can see in this image. Now, unfortunately, we have no interior shot of this picture of this building because, well, there'd be nothing left. There's just nothing there. Do we have an exterior shot?
No.
No. All right. Then let us zoom in on a couple of items.
How were they able to take that good a picture in the side? How they get
Because of
enough
the-
light and everything?
Because of the center of the, you see center just to the left of the chandelier? That is an open area to the second floor where there was a skylight.
Plus the open windows on this side and flash powder and a flash bar. But even then, it was a crapshoot as to how good it would come out. Okay, we'll zero in on a couple of things here. Now, take a look here. First of all, notice the very fancy gas lamps with the milk glass shades. This rather grand display of lace, I would think. And what this exactly is, I don't know what else it could be except a display.
Ladies who
lace.
sew, correct me because I'm going to use the wrong terminology, but it looks to me like the lace that was often put at the bottom of hems on slips or fine dresses. If the-
Pantaloons?
Like if they maybe called it like a tape, but what was it?
Hemming tape.
Hemming tape. That they draped.
You'll notice here, there is a upper floor open area and with a staircase here. I mean, that's the railings for it. And over here on this side, you will notice ribbons hanging down and the beautiful work they did to display the corsets. By the way, do you know what the word corset is in German? Corset. See? All right. You learn something new every time you come to these meetings.
Are those niches built into the building or made for?
They would have been made right for the building, for that store, I believe. But look at the twisted crepe paper there, or material, or what have you, just to show those things off. Okay, next, Mr. Raisler. Here you get a better view of that upper floor, and just what this is next to it, we're just not quite sure.
It's a rug or a tapestry hanging over the
But
balustrade.
you will notice here now, the stairs go up a little bit further. There's actually a skylight too in Shemp's Brothers, the Shemp store on Main Street, or the Kresge Building, or whatever you want to call it, has a skylight in it as well. Okay, here's one of those corset areas. Look at how clear this photograph is. This is a detail of the photograph. Look, you can read Langdon and Bachelor's corset, the American corset, daringly black or dark red maybe.
It says American?
Say American?
I think it says armor side.
Arbor side corset, yes. Langdon and Bachelor's corsets too. That's the box there.
Are there men's products in this store too?
Yes.
Yeah, there were shirts in the
Okay, next.
glass case here.
Now,
There.
look at here. Look at how good this is. There are men's shirts, 79 cents. Collarless, by the way. And up here, buttons, plants, spools of ribbon. All of the little drawers in the back that kept the different knickknacks and things that made up a beautiful lady or gentleman's accoutrement, you know? The ribbon clerk here, who looks like he's enjoying his job. Here is the dry goods section, and all the bolts of material, and the beautiful potted palms up there again, of course. And the ladies, hauling out the reams of cloth. And do we have another? Is that's
No, we're
and
back.
that's everything. So ladies and gentlemen, that is the presentation. And if you are so inclined, we could do another one in another year or two, or however long, as much as you can stand of it. There are infinite numbers of interesting photographs that bear looking at under close scrutiny. Are there any questions?
How many slides are there in this Kreutzmann collection?
161.
Really?
But a number of them have been, over the years, mishandled and damaged. And so the emulsion is not very good anymore. And the prints that were cast from them reflect that. So we don't, you're kind of hit or miss on some of those. And then there are some pictures that are of just individuals, and we're not really sure exactly who they are. But we do have a couple of shots of the interior of the Octagon House, showing Mrs. Richards and her daughter and her sister sitting in the solarium. Yes?
It's worth a trip to the Octagon House just to look at the collection.
Yes, we have the collection in the reprints rather, in a volume that you can kind of page through if you come up to the Octagon House. So yes.
Did run across any picture of J.C. Penney's? This was their original store, was in Watertown.
Not their original store, but I have a picture showing the first location of Penny's in town, which was located on the corner of 2nd and Main in what used to be Wertz's Paint and Floor Covering. That's where they were first. Then they moved over to where the Lion's Pub is today, and that was Penny's when I was a kid for years and years and years until they finally moved out to where Shopko is, and then they went belly up in Watertown at any rate. But it was quite a store. They had, like Schempp Brothers and Fisher's, they had an overhead cash coin change that would shoot back and forth. Although Fisher's had a pneumatic tube system. I think Penny's had a regular basket that went back and forth. Yes.
Have historians identified everything in the pictures?
Well, I have. I don't claim to be anybody special, but I've been able to identify them.
They're all identified. Not every person is identified, but the buildings, the settings.
And even so, little by little, we're actually learning a little bit more each time as to some of these people who are in the pictures already too. Every now and again, someone will donate an actual print that was done, and of course those prints that come in now, as opposed to this being nice and crisp, are pretty well faded. But sometimes those prints that are donated have names written on the back. Yes?
How about the Montgomery Ward store? What was there before Montgomery?
That was all Schemm's.
Oh, it was.
And then Montgomery Ward's and Kresge's took it over in 1936. Montgomery Ward's went to the east side and Kresge's to the west side. And then in 1957, Kresge's took over the whole building. Or as my father always called it, Monkey Wards.
Yeah, and in the Ward store, wasn't there, you could go downstairs, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
the staircase is still there.
Upstairs.
It was a bargain basement down there. And the staircase has been covered over, but the staircase is still there because I've been to the basement of that building.
Have
There
you
was an upstairs
dated?
balcony too,
Yes.
or an upstairs
Have
section.
you dated all the pictures? Put dates on them?
No, some of them were married. For the most part, yes. I mean, just by looking at clues in them, we've been able to identify pretty much dates on most of them.
What time period is it?
I would say they date from about the late 1870s up through the early 1900s. I think the earliest pictures show the earliest pictures are probably the snowstorm of 1881. There might be a few earlier than that, but most of them tend to date to about the 1890s, I would say.
Does an archive like this exist in Jefferson, Beaver Dam, Oconomowoc?
I don't know. It's possible, but we're very fortunate that we have it here. The only other significant archive of negatives relating to Watertown, I might add, exist at the State Historical Society. They were taken by Henry Bergman, we were talking a couple of years ago about picturesque Watertown, if you'll recall. All of the original negatives for those pictures in that little booklet exist up at the State Historical Society. So that if you ever want a picture from there, well, I think up there you're going to pay about $15 to $20 a print, but they are there.
What was his mission?
He was a druggist. He was a druggist, and he sidelighted or supplemented his income by taking commercial photographs of the city to sell to business owners or to as souvenirs. He also put out a couple of postcards. So did Schemm's, for that matter. They put out postcards, and I'm trying to think of, there was some other business in town that did as well, but I know Shim's did. They did beautiful postcards, hand colored.
Those calendar.
Yes.
Are some of these pictures in those calendars that they were selling from about 1998 to 2008 or something?
Did any of those appear?
I don't,
When
it's
did your
very
company-
similar to this, but this collection had not been donated
That's what I thought, yeah.
until 2003.
2003.
A few of them made it in the last years. So that calendar ceased in 2008.
If you got our newsletters back then, we printed a couple of the pictures in the newsletter, and some of the pictures have also appeared in the Watertown History Annual, Volume 1. Which, by the way, how many would be interested in the History Annual, Volume 3? How many would be interested in writing for it? It's a thought, it's a notion. Yes.
Daily Times again.
Yes.
They used to have these nice historical calendars. Do they have like an archive of historic photographs that they?
Well, I believe, I've never seen it, but I believe they have, as far as really old pictures, they have a small, kind of unorganized collection. And then, of course, they maintain their photo archive, which I think is equally uncategoried at this point. But I know they do maintain it.
Are the pictures that they're running with Keck Furniture the Kreisman pictures?
Some of them. You'd have to ask Mr. Riedel behind you there exactly where they all are from. Are the pictures that we're running in the paper?
2 of them have been so far.
A few of them, but I think others came from other parts of our collections up there.
How long is that going to continue?
I don't know. End of the year at least. End of the year at least. Where they're looking for more advertisers. So if you ever wanted to advertise a Watertown photograph in the paper, now is the time. All you need is whatever they cost to advertise.
Oh, that's not like a fundraiser for the roof or anything, huh?
Well, I'm afraid we're not making any money off of that, no, but we are getting a lot of good press coverage, and it draws attention to our ongoing concerns and needs. Any other questions? Any answers? No? Well, very good. Thank you very kindly. Safe trip home, and see you at the next meeting. It should be an interesting one about antique Christmas. Thank you.